Aloha! Welcome to the Live Ukulele podcast. My name is Brad Bordessa. Thank you for tuning in today. We've got a fun interview with the one and only Brian Liu from Next Level Ukulele. Maybe you've seen him on YouTube. That's how I discovered him. We had a great chat talking about different kinds of things as far as his background getting started with music and some of his teaching philosophies. Had a nice time, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Wanted to mahalo everybody who jumped in on my Hawaiian songs for ukulele launch week and got into the lessons during that launch phase. The lessons are still available, but you end up paying full price now because you missed that window. But it's 5 Hawaiian songs that I walk you through kind of with 3 different styles of play, and you learn how to pick each song, how to strum each song and sing the Hawaiian lyrics for each song, and how to solo arrange each song with a basic solo arrangement, and then some of the more advanced tips and tricks that I use to bring my solo arrangements to life. If you want to check it out, there's a link in the podcast description. Otherwise, go to liveukulele.com/store, where you will see it front and center, along with many of my other products. And if you're so inclined to check out some of those lessons, it's always greatly appreciated, and I look forward to helping you improve and learn something that you didn't know before, or learn it in a different kind of a way. The Live Ukulele podcast is published on the first and third Saturdays of every month. If you're not already, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. That way you don't miss an episode. It is also listener supported. So if you like what you hear, feel free to tell your friends, tell your dog, tell your family, tell your ukulele club, or you can check out those lessons I was talking about on liveukulele.com, because liveukulele.com is now ad-free. We are 100% chugging along on those lesson memberships. So your support is very greatly appreciated. And I'm stoked that we can make it work just like this. So let's jump right in. This is the interview I did with Brian a couple of months ago. Enjoy, and go check out nextlevelukulele.com to see Brian's teaching and check out some of his ukulele learning courses.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Can we start with, you're from Hawaii, right? And
Yeah.
You've got some pretty big names on your website of who you studied with. How did you get started playing, and how did those teachers play into your start?
So I was born and raised in Hawaii, and I came from like a musical family. My mom played piano. She went to Juilliard. And so she kind of raised me and my brother to study piano from a young age. And when I think as I got into high school, I started listening to more Hawaiian music, and I was seeing like my classmates, they were all like playing ukulele and guitar. And so that's kind of how I got into it, because I was just like, oh, it looks so fun, and of course, when you're born and raised in Hawaii, it's like you can't help but hear Hawaiian music everywhere you go, So it's kind of this natural fit that I just started picking up the instrument, and then you jam with friends at school. It was like a daily activity that we did. But I feel fortunate that my mom, had raised my brother and I to like learn piano and music from because I would apply sort of like my, I guess, knowledge of music from piano onto the ukulele. And so I really enjoyed just kind of learning the instrument and just emulating the pros, trying to I grew up listening to Ka'au Creative Boys and Jake and Pure Heart, those guys. So like that's where it's all started, was just, wanted to play that kind of music.
And so how did you end up studying with some of those guys?
Yeah, funny. Most of it came from like I would see their shows, and after the show was done, when they like kind of do meet and greets at the end, I kind of ask, like, oh, like, do you teach and can I take a lesson or two? And so that's how I met Jake and Herb Volta Jr. and Troy Fernandez. I forget how I met Troy. It I don't know. Maybe someone hooked me up with him. But anyway, yeah, it was just all kind of very casual, just reaching out and asking for lessons. So that was a huge help. Yeah, each one of them kind of like shared a different insight into kind of how they play and ways to like improve on the ukulele.
And so what was your takeaway from each of them, if you could like bullet point what a Jake, Herb, and Troy lessons look like?
Jake was... I would bring my arrangements to him. I was like, okay, I came up with this thing, what do you think? And he would help me to see that he would treat each string each string is important. And it's all, he made this analogy once. It's like, imagine you have like a quartet, a singing barbershop quartet. Like each person has a very specific role. And you got to make sure like everything is accounted for, or like nothing is left to chance. You've really thought through all this stuff, He also kind of opened my ears to like, you don't have to play your 3-note chords. You can play 4-note chords. You can play the upper extensions and, assume that the lower, like roots and fifths are like taken care of. Like, so you can play outside of that briefly, so you don't have to always play 3 notes. I mean, the root, third, fifth. So he really challenged me, I think, on the music theory side and like really applying it to the ukulele. That's not really a bullet point. I realized I just went on about that.
No, that's great. That's super interesting.
Yeah. Herb was cool because like he took a whole different approach. He's like, okay, you pick one chord. I was like, okay. I think I picked like C major 7 or something. He goes, all right, I'm going to play that chord for this entire lesson, and you got a solo. I was like, oh my God.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and he made me realize, like, you got to figure out how to, like, tell a story with your solos. And, I think it was this point when I started playing these, like, chord melodies. I was, like, outlining chords going up and down the neck. And he's like, you should do more of that, because that sounds more like you. Whereas I can hear you trying to sound like other people in the other parts of your playing. So he says, go figure out what you're doing with those chords and how you're moving up and down the neck. And I was like, okay, cool. Troy was super technical. Very technical. Very like, he had this very precise way of playing. And it was a very like, here, just listen to how I do this. And then you do it back. And it was just that over and over again until I got it sounding just like him, because I don't think he was approaching it from this like music theory or like technical rhythm thing. He was just like, just listen to how I do it and you do it that way. And so that was a good exercise and really understand. I mean, I looked up to that guy since I was a kid, listening to all those Kyle records. So to like sit in front of him and hear it from the source, half the time I was just like, oh my God, you're doing all the things that I like dreamed about. Like, how do you do that?
So you said that Herb encouraged you to move towards kind of a chord melody style. Is that still how you play? How do you envision yourself as a musician? What is your thing?
Yeah. I thought about this in preparation for this conversation. When I look at my background, having studied piano and, really, I grew up playing classical music, so that's, in some sense, you could consider that like, I learned how to read music, right? And someone has composed something and how do you interpret that? Yeah. As opposed to, I'm just going to, for contrast, like, I didn't grow up playing like with like a jazz foundation, so it's like improvisation did not enter my mind until much later in my life. So everything that I sort of grew up on was in a way arranged or structured, yeah. And so when I picked up the ukulele, the thing that attracted me to guys like Jake, was that he was playing these chord melodies. He was doing solo ukulele, right? And he played these chord melodies, and it sounded to me just like the song, but arranged for the ukulele, and that was so cool. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how to arrange music and known melodies, known songs on the ukulele. So I think like the style that I've kind of honed is one that is like based on chord melodies, based on arrangements, kind of really like, if I had to be honest, like this is like it's very structured, my approach, and it is something that I'm working on, like being more loose, learning to like how to improvise a little better, but where I feel most comfortable is like knowing how to play these my arrangements of songs. That's where I come. That's like my bread and butter. Yeah.
I saw on your site you also spoke of studying at Berkeley.
Yeah.
Were you able to use the ukulele and apply stuff to the ukulele there, or was it more of a
I didn't
contemporary instrument?
Yeah. I didn't take out the ukulele at all, actually, when I was at Berkeley.
Wow.
I was studying piano there.
Okay.
Yeah. I studied piano and I studied music production.
Like studio stuff?
Yeah, studio. Yeah, like recording engineering. It's called MP&E, music production and engineering. That's the program that I was in. And I was at that, and I still am, but I went there because I was very interested in understanding how the recording and producing process works. That's also a very interesting part of music to me. Production. Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't really take out the ukulele at all. These days, I think it's slowly trying to combine some of that interest in music production with the ukulele.
So are you recording your own stuff outside of lessons and things like that?
Yeah. So I'm like toying with this idea of like creating. I guess it started with backing tracks, certainly, but then also like I would make my own backing tracks, but I also start to like compose and write songs and try to make like play things on the ukulele that are supported with like a beat, and particularly like a lo-fi hip hop beat, and with like, I guess you would call them with like jazz chords, neo-soul chords, just that's the kind of sound that I'm trying to try to figure out at the moment. So yeah, it's a little bit of taking that production and the ukulele and trying to put it together.
Interesting. Well, that's a hard code to crack for sure. I've watched I think Britney has been kind of going down a similar road, not in the sense of the style, but just like how do these two things that I love go together?
Yeah.
And we're all in our own little ways trying to figure that out, and it's such a long road to get there and find that perfect marriage of the two different parts that shouldn't really seem to go together, but somehow they do.
I mean, I kind of like it because of that. I listen to a lot of like lo-fi and neo-soul, and the two instruments that are used most often are guitar and piano. But when I listen to what those guitars and pianos are playing, they're playing jazz chords. They're playing like jazz riffs or sometimes blues riffs, like. And part of me just like, I feel like that can be done with the ukulele and bring this different sound to the picture, because the ukulele has its own like there's a sound to that, even though it's very, I don't know, it uses the same harmonies as those, jazz guitars and piano, but it sounds so refreshing and like Hawaiian, if you will, on the ukulele.
Right. I always kind of thought the ukulele, when played well, was kind of somewhere between the guitar and the piano. It has a little bit more of a piano tone, I think, than maybe a guitar does,
Yeah.
like a nylon string or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
So in that sense, I totally hear it. I see what you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. So it's in and it's just a journey, right? At the moment, it's just like I'm just exploring it because that's really what interests me. Is even as I thought in preparation for today, I was like, well, what was my ukulele journey like? And it's like I started with high G ukulele, standard tuning, learning Ka'au Crater Voice,
Hmm.
and like over the years, I sort of like transitioned to learning like more chord melodies like Jake. Then I switched my tuning. I switched to low G, and I started to learn a little bit more jazz and trying to now infuse these like beats, lo-fi beats into it. So like, yeah, it's all just a journey now for me.
Yeah. Well, you're holding your uke. Do you want to play something so people can kind of hear what you're
Yeah,
about?
sure. I wonder like where I should. What should I begin? I feel like I should start with something Hawaiian, just to like, because that's where I came from. Yeah. This is kind of something I guess I learned from Troy Fernandez, but it's a little bit. He plays high G ukulele, but with the low G, it just has a different sound. So, here we go. Yeah.
Cool. I can hear the classical background for sure because you play a lot more dynamically than most ukulele players do
Oh,
right out of
really?
the box. Yeah.
Thanks.
So just like the way the dynamics kind of flow through the piece. It's refreshing to hear that
Oh,
so
fun.
prominently.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I didn't never notice that. Yeah, so that's where I came from, learning this instrument for many years was that. Yeah.
Sweet. That's good stuff. Do you do this full time? Are you teaching?
Yeah. I teach full time, all online now. Since the pandemic, and then and the occasional gigs here and there.
You're in San Francisco?
Yeah, in the San Francisco Bay Area. Yeah, so I'll do like farmers markets. We'll do like food truck gatherings and restaurants. Once in a while, like a private event or like a wedding. Yeah, so that's just kind of how I spend my time. It's like teaching this instrument, performing it. Yeah.
Nice. And how did you end up in the Bay Area?
Yeah, I came out here for work. Yeah, and I wasn't always a full-time musician. I worked in tech actually for about 10 years. And so, I mean, the Bay Area was kind of the place for that, you know. And yeah, so I moved out after Boston. I was there in Fort Berkeley. But then I moved out here. I've just, I was like kept ukulele, playing it as like a hobby. I would like go to these clubs and play it with them. And but then yeah, I came out here to SF for the tech industry, really. Yeah.
Wow. That's kind of two different worlds.
Yeah, I think the music has all sort of been in my life with varying degrees of like time that I spend with it. Like there was times when I spent all of my like energy, like at Berkeley, for instance, just studying it, learning it, playing it. And then there's times when I just have it as a hobby, playing it. But more recently, I just got back into it, just like really focusing my time on it and realizing that I could teach people, what I know about this instrument and make a living that way. So yeah, it works out.
Nice. So what are your goals and priorities as a teacher? When a student comes to you, what do you feel is like burning you up to try and share with them about music?
Such a great question. I think if I were to generalize it across, because there's like varying levels, right, that you could be as a student, but I think there's this. I want to help people become confident in playing their instrument, comfortable playing their instrument, and certainly be more in tune, for lack of a better word, no pun intended, but like be more aligned with their taste, So like some of my students come to me because they just want to learn straight Hawaiian music, like Herb or like Troy. And other people come wanting to learn like jazz, and some people want to learn just chord melodies. But all of them have one guy, like he really loves Willie Nelson, but he loves ukulele. So I'm like helping him to like, okay, what are the things that he does, that Willie Nelson does in his music, and like how does he solo, and so how can we learn that? My goal is to help people be more aligned with their taste in music using this instrument, using ukulele, and to be more confident and comfortable doing it. Yeah.
So when you say align,
yeah.
Get me on the same page as you. What are kinds of things are you sharing with them to help achieve that?
Yeah. So it's like when you listen to, I think everyone has their taste, right? Everyone is really into a certain like genre of music or a certain artist. And to be aligned with that, it's like you want to embody it. You want to embody that sound. And so a lot of times it requires like a little more focused study. And maybe that's where my sort of like piano background and music theory and arrangement comes into play, because I can really dissect things down and help people understand like what is a particular artist doing to create that sound. If we're transcribing their music, or if we're trying to play Hawaiian song versus like a country song or a jazz song. And yeah, I like I think that's another thing I like doing. I like dissecting music, helping people to and myself figure out how it works. Why does it work that way? How do you get closer to that sound? Yeah. You teach as well, right, Brad?
Yes, I'm not teaching online in one-on-one as much these days. I did a couple years stint of doing the Skype lessons for a while.
Yeah.
But mainly I just do the video courses and then also teach at Uncle George Kahumoku's workshop every year. So that's like my in-person classroom time
Yeah.
for the most part,
Yeah.
depending on what else is going on.
And when you teach those in-person classes, well, maybe each of them, I'm curious if you don't mind me
Oh, please.
flipping the script here, but like, I'm curious when you teach in person, are you teaching mostly like a specific style? Like,
I mean, yes, I think my style is concepts. For me, the alignment of the student is really getting them to stop them from being overwhelmed, from overwhelming themselves. Because everybody's like, oh, I need to practice this. I need to practice this. I need to practice this.
Yeah.
And they don't actually have, most people don't put in enough time to practice all the things they need to practice. So what I try and do is take something new, but apply it to something they already know. Like I rarely will teach a new song to a class. I just take a song that they already know and we'll do something different to it and explore a concept, be it substitution chords or let's pick the melody on a single string, whatever weird angle I might go for. I try and just, add another card to the deck.
yeah.
Because otherwise, especially in that situation, it's 7 days of just brute force overload information for all these students.
Yeah.
So to try and let's learn a new song. And in the song, we're going to practice this technique. That to me, that seems like too much.
Yeah.
So I try and just okay, what do we all know? Let's take one of the Connie Kapila songs we'll hear every night.
Yeah.
Already relate to it.
Yeah.
And from there, build something new.
Right. These are these group classes?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, there are private lessons as well. But
Gotcha.
But my teacher brain, is kind of calibrated to the group class at this point.
Sure. Yeah, I think maybe part of because I mostly teach private lessons, and every once in a while I'll do like a group class. But in those group classes, I'm just teaching. Here's my arrangement of this song, and this is like how I'm playing it. These are the things that help me, like knowing my chord shapes, for instance. Like that's what helps me to play this song. So I'll be much more like directive in like in the group sessions. But when it comes to one-on-one, I'm like really keen on like, what do you like? And how do we get you sounding more like what you want to sound like,
Do you find that most people have that self-guidance where they know what they want? I always find it's tough for
mostly
me when they
the
don't.
adults, I have a couple younger kids that I teach. And for them, I kind of work with a book, to help them like, okay, let's learn this melody, let's learn how to strum this song, and let's learn how to do these chord changes. But most of my students are adults, and they come to me with this sort of like, I ask them up front, like, what is it, like, what is your favorite song? What are your favorite songs? Who are your favorite artists? Like, what resonates with you? And where would you like to be with ukulele? And usually there's some kind of like intersection of all those things. So it's like, that's what I'm trying to help them with. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. It's so interesting. I mean, I think that, I don't know, see if this rings true for you, but I learn just as much from the students as they learn from me, if not more.
Yeah.
The things that they ask questions about, it's like, I never thought about it that way. Let me figure out how to, answer that question while also informing myself.
I find that it keeps me aware of like these, like the fundamentals. Like a lot of times, I think the biggest thing that I help students with, or that they seem to be like getting to that, like, what is that hump they're trying to overcome? It's like, it's time. It's like keeping good time. And like, how
important.
How does that feel? Like, I think a lot of times people get caught up reading tab, or like playing a melody the way they hear it, but like there's also this sense of like this steadiness, this groove, and that's probably the biggest thing that I try to break that down for a lot of my students, and to your point about like learning from them, it's like I'm realizing like this is so important, because if this groove or this time falls apart, it doesn't have that, it doesn't quite work the way that you want it to.
So how do you teach time to your students?
Yeah. Oh, such a great question. It's like,
Because I find the same thing. People, if I had to just go across the board, something that everybody struggles with, it's time. It's always time.
Yeah. I think the easiest part maybe to apply it to this instrument is that strumming, right? And I'm gonna just kind of improvise this part right now, but like if I were to demonstrate this, it's like right now I'm just doing down strums, right? And I'm gonna tell people like, look, it's like you got 4 counts, and that's like if you can keep that 4 counts and just keep it even, 2, 3, 4, like that's kind of your foundation. But once you start adding things into it, like the subdivisions, like 1 and 2, 3, like can you still keep that steady, you know? And I think at least in the style that I often teach is when people start to pluck melodies, you know, like how do you still keep time while you like I'm still keeping that time even though I'm playing that A Cuckoo Morning Dew melody, right? And so it's like listening for where is that strum that you're getting back to, da, 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 yeah. And I find myself helping people to just really be aware of that 4 count, you know. I think that's the gist of it. I don't know if that's like the only way I do it, but that's a common thing. Yeah. Feeling it.
Yeah. There's a bunch of ways to approach it, and I'm always curious how other people try and make it happen because it seems like a universal struggle.
Yeah.
And it's also very difficult to teach because it's one of those things that it takes time.
Yeah.
Again, no pun intended.
Yeah.
For folks to sit down and practice and focus on that aspect of the playing. Because so often, like you said, it's the tab and making, am I playing the right notes?
Yeah.
It was like, notes don't matter if they're not in time. So why don't you turn your attention a little bit?
I've been experimenting with this thing where when I'm trying to teach someone time, because I don't have like a whiteboard, right? I'll put up the little notepad on my computer and I'll like actually write out 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and underneath that, I mean, here, let me see if I can find one that I've done recently. I don't know if this will translate to the audio portion of your podcast, but I'd love to just show you this because this is starting to work with some of my students. Okay, this guy's learning Hawaiian music, and so I was showing him. Okay, like he wanted to learn island style, you know, on the island we do it island style, and so I was like, look, here's the time, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Da 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 da, right? Right? And I was trying to help him see how 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. And in this there's no tab here. All you gotta do is count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. And this has been, even though it looks so simple, like that visual representation of what 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 looks like is like it has helped him to really like understand, like all these notes kind of fall inside this steady 4 count. I'm like,
That's great. I think that's an awesome way to approach it. Break it down, which is obviously you have probably a much stronger grasp on that than I do, but like when I'm trying to teach a song, I was like, they're struggling with the timing. How does the timing actually go? But it so helps, it seems like, if you can get them to just count and put the instrument away for a second, think about where stuff's going to land.
Yeah. I also encourage people to like record themselves, just like flip the phone on them and like hit record and play and then watch it back and see if you can feel your sense of time in that playback, you know. And then that's
brutal.
Kind of like But you know, I mean, that's just that's the most common thing that I work on with students it tends to be the one that like pays the most dividends,
right?
because when they start to lock in that time, you can really hear like they start getting more comfortable and confident with what they're doing. Yeah,
Yeah, because it applies to everything.
it applies to everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you running pretty much a full schedule of one-on-one lessons at this point?
Yeah. I mean, I make some time for myself to do some other things, but most of my time, I spent teaching. And,
Cool.
and when I'm not, like, I'll try to make so like you, right? I do these like online courses. I saw that you have a few, and I'm also like, that's kind of been this thing that I've been exploring recently too. Like because I did the group classes too, and then what I realized is like, oh, like if I could just translate this into like an online course, then people could like learn that through the course, and then if they want to reach out to me for one-on-one, they could do that as well.
And so how are you finding that as far as presentation style?
Yeah, the feedback I've gotten is been pretty positive. Folks are, I guess, appreciative of like I'll break things down like pretty very detailed way. It's like, and I'm teaching my arrangements too, of certain songs. So in it, I often like not just teach my arrangement, but I teach like my reasoning behind like why I went this a certain way, or like how I visualize the fretboard, and like certain, like the thing that I've been teaching a lot now is like chord shapes. Like if you're trying to learn to play up and down the neck, especially with chord melodies, like I'll give an example, like Auld Lang Syne, right? All of this stuff is like I just see chord shapes, yeah. Yeah. And every one of those things, there's only like, I'm kind of only using like 3 or 4 chord shapes, but I move them up and down the neck. And that's been another concept that I've been sharing with my students recently, there's been light bulbs been going off. Like, oh my God, I'm just using these same chord shapes everywhere. I'm like, yeah, it's like, we just know like this core set, you can get through that. So that's something I've been focusing on, with the online courses, is to try to like show my style, my arrangements, but also like teach these fundamental concepts that apply for everything.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how are people finding you these days?
Yeah, mostly YouTube and Instagram, and even that, like, keeping up with social media is tough for me. Like I actually don't go on Instagram that much these days now. It's like, but usually, yeah, when I post content frequently on YouTube, people are reaching out to me, and they're signing up for my courses and stuff like that. Yeah.
Nice.
That's how it usually works.
Yeah, that's a good one to try and leverage, but especially YouTube takes such a large amount of time to produce a nice video and then, publish it out and then do that every week or whatever. That's kind of overwhelming. Whereas, the Instagram or whatever, it's just, hey, look at this.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I know myself to be one that's a bit of a perfectionist about things. So like I'll spend countless hours like shooting the video, editing the video, when I know that I could probably just get it done in 1 or 2 takes and pump it out faster, and it would be probably just as good in terms of its like broad reach and what people are seeing, and they're just getting a sense of like what I do,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people appreciate that. I think that even on a subconscious level, you can really tell with your videos. They're like super high quality. Not everybody is doing that. Even folks who are, have a much bigger reach than you, it's obvious that they're just like throwing up a camera and playing some stuff, whereas you're like making it pretty.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm a nerd for that kind of stuff too. Like even this Zoom that we're using, I'm like using a digital camera for this, and like the same camera setup that I use for my YouTube videos, and yeah, I'm a fan of like figuring out how to make things like feel good, how to look nice, sound good, you know.
Well, this is our new world. We kind of have to
Yeah.
get that dialed in.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, so I'll it like ebbs and flows. You know, sometimes I'm pumping out a lot of content. Sometimes I'm just kind of laying low. I'm like like right now I'm working on a Beatles chord melody course. You know, that's like the next chapter for me. So I've done 2 courses so far. One was just like an intro to chord melody. The next was a holiday edition, you know, Christmas and New Year's songs. And now the Beatles. It's a good. It's kind of where I'm spending a lot of my time now.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And on the side, are you writing much? Do you do much original stuff?
Yeah, you know, that also ebbs and flows. You know, like I'll write songs in that, like we were talking about lo-fi earlier. You know, like I have one track that I put out on Spotify and Apple Music, and I had this vision. I've got like 5 more that, again, I just like such a perfectionist about it that I'm not really putting it out, but like they're in varying states of readiness to be, you know, released as singles or eventually an EP. So, I do write music. I try to like take like little riffs on the ukulele and then add beats to them and then see if I can compose a whole song like that. So.
And so those tracks you're working on, they feature ukulele?
Yeah. All of my tracks that I produce at the moment are like ukulele, and then I'll play keyboard, you know, and sequence a beat or something like that, and play a bass line. Yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe that's something, if you wouldn't mind, we could share one of those tracks. I don't know much about the genre, but I think you're onto something.
Thanks. But yeah, it's it's like loop based music, but you know, that's the sound, yeah, that I've been working on. Yeah.
That's sweet. Well, I always have to ask this question of everybody who comes on the podcast. Yeah. What are you working on next? You got the Beatles thing?
Yeah, so I got the Beatles thing. And yeah, I guess a couple of things. So, do you want me to play what I'm working on? Is that
either way? I'm just kind of curious so folks know what to expect.
Yeah, so some things I'm working on is more of that kind of music, you know, and I explore it a lot by I make my own backing tracks and try to play with it. So like here's an example. There's this song called Sunny by Bobby Hebb. And I just put a beat to it and I made it a backing track. But this is kind of how I explore this sound of taking the ukulele and adding a beat to it. So let's see if I can play. Hopefully it syncs up with the audio here. on your end. So it's like a backing track. Yeah. So that's like, it's kind of in that same genre that I'm trying to work out, putting together beats and ukulele and seeing how like those two can come together. And then I guess another thing like the Beatles thing. So I guess I know a few Beatles songs, but like I always like coming up with new arrangement, like learning new songs. So like the one I'm working on right now is, this is still work in progress. I'm figuring out my arrangement for it. So I guess I'll just play a little bit of it and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Preview, yeah.
Oh, this is Here, There, and Everywhere, by the way. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm like still working it out, but it's like that's one that I get excited by because I just like I like using harmonics and stuff like that. So we'll see how it comes out. That's
Cool.
one that I'm like gonna write out and hopefully perfect that one.
And so once this is released, where can people find it?
Yeah, Next Level Ukulele is my website. Yeah. And so that's
nextlevelukulele.com.
Nextlevelukulele.com, and that's everything. It's like chord melodies, like my courses. You can find it through there. I'm gonna probably set up a group class first. That's usually my progression. Is like I'll write these arrangements, I'll create a group class, teach it a few times, and when I feel good about the songs and the selection, I will I'll produce that course, and then you can also find it on that same site. And then you can also contact, through that website for private lessons and everything. That's where to go. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Ryan.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much. This has been it's been a pleasure. And
yeah, it's always nice to catch up and especially talk to new faces that we haven't really connected in the past. So
yeah, no, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of your music. Your podcast is great. So thanks for having me. Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely.
So be sure to go check out nextlevelukulele.com or look Brian up on YouTube, also under Next Level Ukulele. It's got some great tutorials on there, and the production quality is really high. The audio is nice. He's got a nice studio set up with the cameras and everything. It's pretty fancy, and I'm a little bit jealous. But it's something we're all working on. It's the other side of the online teaching coin, right? Is you start a website and maybe you make some tabs and you shoot some YouTube videos, but there's always this, in addition to actually teaching the lesson, there's this whole production side of things that, we're always trying to keep up to date with what's cool, what's good, what makes for a nice look and a nice experience for you, the user, as you are consuming this material, whether it be a podcast or a video or a tab. We're always trying to strive for making things as comfortable as possible and taking away as many barriers as possible that maybe keep people from the lesson. If you can't hear it well or you can't see well, those are things that kind of detract. And as time moves on and we get different technologies and stuff, hopefully we're able to create better and better material for folks to learn to play the ukulele. So nextlevelukulele.com or Next Level Ukulele on YouTube. You can find Brian. Go check him out and support his work. I'll be back here with another Live Ukulele podcast on the first or third Saturday of each month. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, leave a review if you're so inclined. And to support the cause, go to liveukulele.com/store and check out some of my ebooks and video lessons. Like I said, the new Hawaiian Songs for Ukulele course is out, and I'm super excited to share it with folks. It's 5 Hawaiian songs broken down into kind of 3 different playing styles. You go through the picking and the strumming and the solo arrangement. So there's something for every level of player. And if you're interested in learning some Hawaiian music, it's a real good way to get started and to kind of have, an appropriate intro to the style. Because I talk about pronouncing the Hawaiian words correctly and some of the different background stuff that maybe you wouldn't get from just a very basic YouTube tutorial of here's how to play the song. I try and give all the information out. So you can go check that out, hawaiiansongforukulele.com. There will be a link down in the podcast description. I'll catch you next time. Until then, be well out there, take care of one another, and keep on jamming those ukuleles. Aloha.